Well, Pride staff, family, and friends, it is John O'Leary. Welcome to Sunday. Welcome to session number 6, Celebrating Life Together. In this session, we're going to be celebrating a theme, a topic called sharing gratitude. It's a critical leadership capability that we lean into that changes not only our lives, but also the lives of those that we choose to share gratitude with. And as you know by now, I normally begin by encouraging you to grab a cup of coffee. I got mine right over here, a pen, some note paper to take some notes with, because I want to begin with a quote today that you may want to write down. Pride staff, feeling gratitude and not expressing it is like wrapping a present. What's the final line? And not giving it. Feeling gratitude and not expressing it is a little bit like wrapping a present and choosing to not give it. I think many of us have felt that call to let someone know how much we appreciate them, to write a love letter or a thank you letter or a note of appreciation to somebody. But how often do we follow through on that? Today I want to share with you a story of a time that I chose not to follow through on it, the result of that mistake, what redeemed that situation, and ultimately what it means for you. So it's going to be a worthy conversation. Get ready to buckle up for the ride. Let's go, my friends. You may know that John O'Leary at age 9 was burned in a house fire when a can of gasoline at about 5 gallons in size blew up in my face. It launched me 20 feet against the far side of the garage. It changed my life forever, still, forever. I needed parents. I needed guardians. I needed staff. I needed the team. I needed volunteers. I needed prayers. I needed support. But I needed individuals to show up on my behalf, and was lucky and blessed to find people not only from around our region, but from around the world. Perhaps for me, the most transformational of those leaders was a guy named Jack Buck. You've heard his story. Don't worry, I'm not going to go through the entirety of it today. But clearly, this is a man who changed my life. After he was able to visit me that first time in hospital on the day after I came in, he was told by the staff that the little boy was going to die. There is no reason for hope. And this man takes it home, asks one question, and the following day he shows back up in my life. Kid, wake up. You are going to live. And then he leaves. And then he shows back the following day, and then the following day. And then we keep moving toward John O'Leary Day at the ballpark. For 5.5 months, he continues these visits until July 26, 1987. The man picks me up in a Lincoln Town car, takes me downtown, and we have John O'Leary Day at the ballpark. He learns that I can't hold anything with my hands, so the following day he sends me this, a baseball with a note. If you want another one, write a thank you letter. So I did. And I did again and 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 again. Pride staff, 60 different times a little boy wrote thank you letters to these ball players. One man teaching a little boy how to write, how to believe, how to dream, how to strive, how to return to school, and then high school and college. And when I graduated university, you know where this goes. This man shows up and provides this crystal gift. It's the baseball that he received when he went into the Hall of Fame. Kid, this means a lot to me. I hope it means a lot to you too. Enjoy, it's yours. Jack Buck was a servant. He was a friend. He was a shepherd. He was a mentor. He, without a doubt, outside of anyone beyond my own family members, the most influential person in my entire life. I loved Jack Buck. But this quote is one that sears me today. And I would imagine for those of us who I've not yet rocked to sleep, it might sear you a little bit, because you've recognized, like if you're like me, there are times, sometimes in our lives, when we have felt gratitude, but we chose not to express it, which is akin to wrapping a present and not giving it. Jack was a dear friend of mine for years. And then in 2001, Parkinson's disease, coalescing itself with stage 4 cancer, made this great man sicker and sicker and sicker until near the end of his life, Jack found himself in a hospital bed. He would spend the last 5.5 months of his life in a hospital bed, slowly fading away. And this was my opportunity finally to repay the man who had done so much for me. I mean, what's the chance? I spent 5.5 months in hospital, and at the end of his life, he spends 5.5 months in hospital. So here's my chance to finally express gratitude. So how many times, Pride staff, do you think I went down to visit my friend Jack Buck in hospital? How many times? Every day? At least once a week, my gosh. And the answer, and it pains me to share it with you, but it's the truth, not once. I did not visit Jack a single time over the final 5.5 months he spent on his back in a hospital bed. Not because I was busy, not because I was indifferent, not because I was claiming I was going in this direction or that direction or out of town or whatever else the excuse might have been. The reason I never went down to visit Jack is I never felt worthy of the relationship in the first place. I never once felt worthy of being in his sphere of influence, being supported and served and loved by him. And if you don't feel worthy of something, it also means you don't feel worthy of giving something back in kind. So I never felt worthy of this love. I never felt worthy of this gift. And so in the last 5.5 months of his life, I never felt worthy of visiting him. I always figured somebody else would go. Somebody else would be there for him. I got a call from my mother in mid-June of 2002 that Jack Buck's family had called her that day and that the man had passed away the night before. Learning that he had passed away broke my heart because I recognized not only had I lost a great friend, but I had been to that great friend a horrible friend. So I felt lousy about that. A couple days later, I received a call from a Buck family member inviting me to Jack's funeral, which I did not feel worthy of going to. But I was invited, and so I went. And what I remember about that experience is I'm early 20s. I put on my one cheap suit that I owned at the time, put on my tie, got into my old beat up Jeep Cherokee, drove out to this beautiful church in St. Louis County. I'm fixing my tie. I've never really done this before, so it's sideways. It looks like a piece of bacon, man. It's a mess. I'm fixing this tie in the window. And that's when I look behind me. And I see all these guys in fancy suits walking by. And then I look to my left and I see this big Mercedes pull up next to mine. Fancy car. And then out of that Mercedes steps a Hall of Fame announcer. A guy named Dan Dudorf, a football player and now an announcer. Wow, famous guy here. A guy with status, a guy with wealth, a guy who knew Jack, a guy who loved Jack, and a guy who was loved by Jack. He's here. Then I look over to my right. More successful guys and ladies getting out of their vehicles. And what I recognized that day in the parking lot of the Jack Buck's funeral is all these people belonged there. And I did not. I'm like the piece that does not fit. I don't belong here. And so I waited for all of those people to walk into this church. I waited for the doors to shut. Then I turned my automobile back on, undid my tie, pulled out of that parking space, made it about 2 miles down the street before I pulled the vehicle over and just started weeping like a baby. I had recognized my sins and my brokenness and the mistakes I'd made. I recognized what a lousy friend I'd been for decades. I recognized what a coward I was and what a failure. Like this weight, man. The kind of messy cry where you use this entire sleeve on your sport coat and then you're using this sleeve next. At the end of this cry, I look at my watch and I realize that it's too late already for me to go back into this funeral. But it's not too late for me to begin expressing gratitude and living differently. Pride staff, I hope you're still leaning forward. It's not too late for me to begin expressing gratitude and living differently. So although I was unable that day to go to Jack's funeral, this church was way out west by my grandma and grandpa's house. And I never once stopped by unannounced, just to say hello, just to say I love them, just to thank them for who they are, the influence they've been in my life. And so with this cheap suit on, I drive my little Jeep out to my grandma and grandpa's, park the car and ring the bell. They both show up together as they always were. And they said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Guys, I just came because I wanted to come out and take you out to lunch." We had a remarkable lunch together, and it ended with these words. "And guys, Grandma and Grandpa, I wanted you to know how much I love you and how much you mean to me." And I hugged them both, and I kissed their cheeks, and I thanked them for being part of my life. I'd never done it before. But I'm glad that I did that day. I'm glad I expressed gratitude. I'm glad I started living a little differently. And it was a step forward. It was one step forward. That day when I got home, I took off that suit, put on my old blue jeans, and then I called my mom and dad and said, hey guys, can I take you out to dinner tomorrow night? Something I'd never done before. I'm in my early 20s, never taken them out to dinner. Why would I? They're my parents. Well, that evening, the following day, I took them out to dinner, treated them, wrote them both love letters, had them both read it in front of me. And I said, guys, I don't think I've ever told you this before, but I am so grateful that you're my parents. I'm so grateful you were with me during those 5.5 months in hospital. And I'm grateful that you're still with me, leading me today. Expressing gratitude, taking the next right step, moving forward along the journey. I promised myself when I got out of the hospital that I would never, ever go into the hospital. I think that's one of the reasons I never visited Jack Buck. I never wanted to go into a hospital. But I recognized until you can face your fears, you're always going to live chained to them. So I signed up to become a hospital chaplain, and I got to spend a couple years serving kids in hospital. These kids who taught me so much more about life than I could have ever taught them. But it was one more step forward along the journey. I kept doing things like this in the community. One of the really cool things I did is I wrote this man a long love letter. Began with these words, Dear Jack, and then it went on to say, I am in awe of how much you gave me. And then went on from there. I wrote on the backside that I needed a second page, and then a third page, and then a fourth page, this love letter to my friend Jack Buck. And then I put it in an envelope, and I met someone that I knew he would love to have learned more about this relationship out to lunch. It was his son, a guy named Joe Buck. And at a Starbucks here in St. Louis, Missouri, I took Joe out for a little coffee. I read in this letter. I had tears all over my eyes and up and down my cheeks as I read this letter. And every single time I looked up from this read, I looked at Joe Buck, this man who I did not know well then, but I know well now. And he also had tears in his eyes and running up and down his cheeks. It was one more step, my friends, back forward, expressing gratitude, growing forward in life, taking the next right step. A couple weeks back, we shared the story about the gentleman in hospital who shared this quote with me. I've spent a lifetime sprinting up the ladder only to discover after making it to the very tippity top, I had the damn thing leaned against the wrong wall. Well, Pride staff, this day, on this Sunday, and throughout this week, we want to make sure that the foundation that your ladder rests on is firm, that the wall you lean it up against is right, and that you are taking the appropriate next step forward toward real success, toward real significance. That's what this week, that's what this session, that's what Coach Matt's follow-up is going to be all about. So here we go. In that exercise that we did a couple of weeks ago, and this is not the first time that you've seen this little wheel of life, we had you turn that into a circle in the middle of a page, put 6 or so circles around it, and then we had them, the individuals, the mentors, the leaders in your life, family members, shepherds to you, teachers, sons, daughters, parents, whoever they may have been. They all stood up one by one and they thanked you for something. What did they thank you for? All right. What kind of leader were you to them? What kind of influence were you to them? Well, here's your week to say thank you back. I want you to pick just one. I know one of my weaknesses. I want to do a million things. Do it all, man. Do it all. And Coach Matt has always reminded me, John, pick one. Pick one. So leaders, today I remind you, pick one person. And now you write them a thank you letter. Now you share with them gratitude. Now you tell them what they mean to you. Just pick one. I want you to write one love letter this Sunday. Do not let the sun set on this date before you thank one individual in your life for the profoundly positive influence that they have been for you. That's the exercise. We're going to express a little bit of gratitude this week. We're going to take the next right step forward in our lives. It's going to be powerful. It will elevate your game. It will clear your head. It will fill you with joy. And as beautiful as that is, it will do the exact same thing for the individual lucky enough to receive this love letter from you. That's the exercise, family, Pride staff leaders. Tomorrow's not promised. We know that around here at Pride staff. Tomorrow's not promised. We have today. It is a gift. Let's act like it. Some of you may be asking, yeah, this was nice, John. I think I'll write that love letter. You doggone right you will. Coach Matt's going to follow up to make sure you do. But some of you also want to know where you're going next. So I'll give you a hint of where we're headed next. Session number 7 is a powerful one. It is called the Lifeline activity. We have received feedback from clients around the United States and around the world that it is their favorite of the sessions. So it's a powerful one that we're moving to in 2 weeks. But that's 2 weeks out. We're going to live today. We're going to express gratitude, and we're going to make sure that the individuals in our life who have influenced us positively know the impact that they've had on us. Do not wait. Do not delay. We got today, and it is enough. So, my friends, for this time and until next time, my name is John O'Leary. Happy Sunday to each of you, and know that the best is yet to come, starting now. I'll see you in 2 weeks.